Hey everybody, it's Erin Reed, and today on Erin Reed Makes, we're going to make a vintage steampunk junk journal with a few different elements, starting with the main part of it from a vintage girl. That is what this piece, these pieces here, and also these pieces you see off in the corner are all from a vintage girl, and that is part of the hop we are doing today. This is the main part of the journal. I'm just going to try to run you through what the beginning of this looks like. So look at all these beautiful pieces, and you can turn them into whatever kind of orientation and what order you want to put them in, which one's first, which one's last. And you can kind of get the idea for what this cool book looks like. I'm not using all of the pieces this round. I'm actually going to take these two pieces out because I thought these would be great to keep for a future book because I have a beginning and then I can add different things in the middle. So I'm going to save these for another time. So for today, what I'm going to use, I'm actually going to also save this middle flap as well. So there's three pieces I'm saving for a future time. So for this book, I'm going to take the corrugated cardboard from the front. I have the two gears, and then I have the corrugated cardboard, of which you could leave it so that it goes this way. But I'm going to have, I haven't decided if I'm going to have the cardboard facing inward or have a side that is plain. So you can kind of go wherever you want with that. And then obviously we have the beautiful alphabet and then the gears. And then off to the side here, I've pulled some of my petaloo flowers. My color story is coming from these papers. This is a Couture Creations Enchanted Tea Party, very kind of Alice in Wonderland. And I just love the colors of it. I love the vibe of it. It's got some pieces I can cut out and use. I mean, just look at that. It's so fun. And just the kind of the color story that it has. So I'm pulling some of those. And as always, links are going to be down below. A couple of really pretty Prima swirls. I just thought it really vibed well with the whole thing. I have my little Wink of Stella brush here, a little shimmer brush that we're going to be adding some texture to. And then I have my Crafter's Workshop stencil. I just love the kind of the look of the gears. So let me just lay this down so you guys can see it. So the look of the gears, but also has a little bit of that dragonfly. I mean, it kind of hit that vibe between the steampunkiness that's happening within the book with the gears, so it's mimicking that, but then adding in some of the softness of the dragonfly to go with the flowers and stuff. And then obviously we'll have some flowers as well. And so therefore we're also going to be using the Crafter's Workshop paints. First thing I want to do is I want to cut my book. So I don't want to have a tall book. I actually want to change up the size. And that's the beautiful thing about when you get something like this, you can alter it as much as you want. So I'm going to cut it so I have the 3 holes. So basically I'm just trimming off a little bit of some extra pieces here. And if I go 9 inches, no, we're going to go about, let's make it easy, 8 inches. So everything I cut is going to be the 8-inch marker now. All right, so the way my book is going to play out is here's my front cover, and then we open it up and we have this page here, which is, so the gear is facing downward, and then I have the back side of the gear to play with. Then I have the top gear to play with, that flips over. And then I am going to decide, because partly this made the decision, I want to have the rounded end at the bottom because the top end I cut off, it's now making it straight. So my book is now 8 inches by 5.5 inches, which gives me lots of room to play with. All of my other sheets of papers I'm going to be using are 6 inches, so it gives me room to cut them down and to fit them. These little pieces here you could choose to keep. You could use, as layers. So I could technically layer this up, and that actually is kind of cool. I can add a dimension now by cutting it. So I can paint this or something and add a dimension, and it adds a layer. And I can do the same thing for the other side. So on the inside book part now, totally going to do this. I have one where I can add a little bit of corrugation. So now, and it's adding that rounded edge. So I'm going to pop those into there. All right, so what I've done is gone ahead and kind of laid out the general idea of what I want to do. And I took my phone and took a picture of it. So I actually cut apart, and I cut a little bit too much. So I'll just replace it as I'm putting it down on my piece. So I cut these 2 pieces apart. I'm going to put them aside right now. I pulled out all these elements I wanted. So I'm just putting these off to the side so I don't mess them up. And then now I'm going to come in and do my layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my background layer and put on my stencil. And I went ahead and already matched my paint colors. I'm going to do a little bit of white. I'm going to do a little bit of some gold, pop in some gold. And then I matched as best as I could the color of the flower with a little bit of the blueberry jelly bean kale smoothie and the white, tiny, tiny, tiny bit of the kale smoothie just to bring in that little bit of turquoise. So I use up those 3 paints. And I'm just laying my thing. I want to have this piece and I want to have this piece kind of coming off to the side. I know I'm not going to see this middle strip, so I'm just going to place this again so I kind of know where it's going to hit. So my hole is there. So this part is not going to be seen. It's going to be totally fine. You're going to see this piece down here, and you're going to see this up here, which is exactly what I want, and a little bit of some of that gear. So I might actually shift this over just a tiny bit more so I can just see a little bit more of that script coming through. So because I'm covering quite a bit of this up, I want to be able to see what's happening here. And a little bit, maybe I'll center this down a little bit so I can see that tiny bit of a pop. So it's like the gear is kind of going around. And I'm going to start off with doing it in white. I'm using a stencil brush, and I'm just coming in and kind of stenciling it on here. It's going to not be perfect because it's got the corrugation, which is, I kind of like that vibe. And I just hold it by hand. I don't worry about trying to make it look perfect. Kind of put my brush off to the side here so it doesn't make a mess. And it's just a little hint of that. So really quickly, I'm going to come in and heat set this because we're going to add a second layer. So I have the matching stencil in the 6x6, and I think that's awesome because it gives you this kind of cool, you know, what's happening vibe between the two sizes. You get the big version and the small version. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in, I'm just going to add, I'm actually going to do it in 2 stages. I'm going to add a little bit here and come up and add a little bit to this top section. And this time I'm going to do it in the blue, and I'm going to keep that dragonfly. So I'm going to come in with a second stencil brush, and this time we're going to come in with that blue color that I created. And it's just that little hint, little something going on there. It's that little pop. And again, we're adding lots of layers on this, so it's no big deal. I'm going to heat set that so I don't damage it before I put my next layer down. So now it's mostly dry, got some cool bubbles and textures, and I'm going to come in and do this again. Remember, it's going to get covered up by a portion of this. So all you're really going to see is that top section, and that's all I need is just a little hint so it's not completely one-sided with the color. So all I'm going to do is this top gear right here. So I'm coming in with some of those papers that I got from your Paint Paper Crafters, and I'm pulling out one that has similar colors. I know I'm going to be covering up a little bit about what I've done, totally fine, but just to give you an idea, this is kind of where I'm going, and I am going to be re-hole punching these hole punches. And I cut this so I could see that one border and then that second border. So it's going to fit right smack in the center there. It's just that little hint of something happening along there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and glue these two pieces together. For that, I'm going to use my dual tip max glue pen from Supertite. It has a great hold. It sticks anything to anything. I'm going to avoid the hole on here because I don't want to have that be a problem. And it has a lot less chemicals or other things in there. It's Prop 65 safe, which is fabulous, meaning that in California, if you have anything in there that should not be in there, it's something that you have to put on your warning label. And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to quickly put a little hole punch into this so I can line it up correctly. Just going to take my punch, go right in to where the other one is. Super easy. See, look how fast and simple that is. And then that lines up right there, just like that. So it adds that little extra layer. So now I'm going to come in and glue this down. So this glue does not have any of those things that they deem as being unsafe, which means it is awesome for anywhere in the world. And it holds great, and it's got a great price. So check that stuff out because it is super inexpensive as well. And there's a coupon code. So Vintage Girl, check her out. She's amazing. Candy is the creator of all of these little pieces that I'm playing with, all this cardboard and all these chipboard pieces and designs. They're super cool. And it makes for a great mixed media book. And as you can tell, you can kind of modify from what is originally there. I'm just going to come in with my white, since I already kind of have it going, and just add a little bit of white to each one of these gears just to make them. I might actually leave a couple of them blank, but the craft on the craft, they don't pop as well. But here, now they pop. And it ties in a little bit of that white that happens to be there, which is awesome. And maybe I'll throw in a blue one for good measure, just to bring in a little bit of that color. So I'll switch gears. Haha, no pun intended on that, switch gears. We'll do 2 and 2. So I love these stencil brushes because they really do add a lot of good dimension, as you can see. I did not put much paint on there. They're very, very little paint because that stencil brush really puts light, but I just want to make sure that they're mostly dry. So I will do this from time to time. I will come through, I will get it all kind of organized, kind of step back, look at it for a second, and decide not exactly where I wanted it to go. So what I've done is I've actually pulled off everything I have just done. I'm going to reuse it. I just felt like it needed one more layer. So I'm taking those two little pieces that we cut at the very, very beginning, and I painted them with the blue, and now I'm coming in with my little Wink of Stella brush and just adding a little bit of that shimmer. So just like that. So it's my brush pen. I'm just going to add a tiny bit. So it's something, it's got that little bit of some grunge, ties in with the colors, and I want those holes to show. There it is right there, just like that. I'm going to come in because I've got lots of layers with holes. I'm using the same, it's the Supertite glue. This is just a little bit of a thicker glue, a little bit of a stronger hold. This is the all-purpose universal glue. Still very kid safe, super awesome. It's just a little bit of a thicker paste or, glue substance, and it'll basically stick anything to anything. And so I've got some layers of some gems and some other things. So now I've got this vertical line here. There we go. And now I'm going to come in and add in my gears on top. And I can do everything while it's kind of wet. So I still kind of want to have that same vibe. So now I'm going to come in and notice these are actually sticking together from when you didn't see me do the glue earlier, and so I'll rehash. I was using this glue. Well, you saw me using it, gluing the paper layers together. So there you go. But I'm using the other version. This is where the flowers were, and they will still end up covering that up. So I will be good. And now I can come in and add some gears here. I do have to add some more glue to this because I kind of pulled it off before I had a chance to set. So there is my 4 gears. I did play around with the other 2 gears, and I thought, you know what, I think we're actually okay. And then my 2 flowers. And now I feel like it's got some better vibe happening. It just needed that one extra layer. Something about it just didn't set right. Because I've been playing around with this so much, I'm going to add some more glue to this. And this is my glue jar. I haven't chatted about that in a long time, so anybody who may be new, that is how I end up holding all my glue. So just going to tuck these in. I have some room to kind of groove and play, lift up and kind of tuck in, and there we go. And now we officially have the cover, and I'm loving that linearness. It's just giving an anchor for all those pieces to kind of rest upon. So cover is almost done minus the title. I did this earlier when I first put on, and then I deleted that whole section of the video. I took my paintbrush and I went like this, and that's how I got all the blue lines. So you just saw that skipped. I should have done it now that I had everything pulled off. I can come in and add so it doesn't look so disjointed, and so you can see it popping through. And that's where the blueness came from. And it's just kind of hitting a little bit of the color of the blue since I still have it on my paintbrush right there. There it is. Now it's officially done. The next layer is going to be this layer, and we're going to do something very, very simple. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my whites, and I am just going to paint the whole thing into white. Now come back to my little Wink of Stella, and I'm just going to kind of add some little bits coming in where I want. And I know I've got some smudgies, and that's cool. I'm going to come in with my paintbrush, and I'm going to do the circles. So you can see the little circles, and just rough. I don't need them to look perfect. I'm literally taking my hand and just kind of adding some more possibly texture, smushing some things around. I don't want this to look super clean. I think it's the best way to describe that. So I'm pulling out my heavy body paint in iridescent silver. Just take another stencil brush. I know I'm using stencil brush. It's because I just want it to brush on. It's just giving this cool kind of texture on here. And it kind of blends in quite a bit with the chipboard, which I think is kind of fun. And if the backside gets a little muddled, not worried about it. So I have a different brush for each color that I've been using now. Now I'm going to come in, I'm going to dry this. And I'm going to come in with my stencil, and I really want this to line up and then a portion. And we're going to do this all in white this time. Really make it pop. And look at that. You really kind of get that whole vibe of what's happening. And then this just now needs to dry. And if in the future I always want to add anything to that, that's fine. But for now, we're just going to leave it looking like this. I just think it looks so cool. And then we will be coming back, and I'm going to smear some of this white onto the front. Really kind of get in there, make it look grungy. And maybe add, I've got that silver. I can always come in and play. I'm not putting it on the ground, but maybe blend a little of that silver on here. Really kind of make this more grunge. I'm going to heat set both sides real fast and just by holding up the top corner. So I've been playing around and I took a picture of where I was at with this piece, and I just started pulling out things I had in my stash. I mean, I made myself kind of a little thing, and I don't want to cover up the colors. I pulled off this little flower from the front swirl. This is the dot that was in the center. Found some other blue and just metallic pieces, and down to even using the wires that are coming off this. So I'm just kind of setting out everything off this side here. Hodgepodge of a lot of stuff. I know some of these things are from Prima, some of them are Tim Holtz, some of them are just, I don't even know where they came from. A little bit of everything. So I think a lot of this stuff is actually like Prima or Finnabair kind of items. So I know I'm going to be going in this space. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of add a little bit of some colors. The first step is I'm going to take a little bit of some white. Actually, I'm going to take this blue here and just add some blue, get some linearness happening. My paint is almost dry. It's okay, I can always redo it. So add some linearness. Get another paintbrush and add some really linear silver happening. And then I'm going to heat set this and add some black. This is actually a gray pen. It's an old Prima pen, but it gets the point across. Just adding some dimension to that, just painting on there. All right, so now I'm going to come into my picture and I'm going to use the same glue I was using earlier, and I'm going to start building. So all these pieces are the same. I started off with one here. It's going to dry fairly quickly, but that's the point where I can't move things around. So I'm going to build my base first. I'm trying to remember how I did this. Okay, then I came off, oh, I did this one first. And I don't have to be exact. It was just kind of like a framework is where I was kind of working from. And then I had one coming in here. So I'm just going to speed up the fact that I'm building. You guys can kind of get the gist of it as I'm laying along. And just adding elements to this. But I'm going to speed that up for you. All right, now this whole piece needs to sit and rest for a while, but it needs something to kind of hold everything down because those wires are pulling everything up. So I'm just taking a paint and doing that. I'm actually going to come in and do that. So everything is getting a little bit of a secure hold, and it just takes a few minutes, maybe about 5 or 6 before everything kind of sets and it has a chance to really get secure. And as the book closes, these wires will get flattened down, so I'm not too worried about this happening here. So just some dry time. I'm also going to go ahead and clean up some of my stencils. And whatever. All right, so now we're moving on to the next page. Now this is going to be the back side of the front cover. Now, why am I doing this on a separate sheet of paper? Well, if I flip this over and try to work on the back side of my front cover, which is amazing, I'm loving it. I'm loving all the blue. This blue is one of my favorite colors. I'm going to end up smashing, but if I do it on a separate sheet of paper and then glue this to this, then I'll be set. So I went ahead and kind of laid out my general design, and as again, I'm going to do my quick picture. I'm trying to pull in some pieces that are similar from previous parts of the layouts. That way everything is not brand new. So for instance, I use these little clips somewhere. I'm using, like, here's a similar type of gear. These are coming from the papers, that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to come in and take a quick picture. So that way I have my general idea. And now I can come in and do some stenciling work because I'm going to add in that stencil as well. So I'm going to pull in my big stencil. Here we go. And I want to add, actually, I'm going to go vertical. I really want this piece right here. But I'm going to go vertical with it. I want to have the outline. I want it to be that vertical piece. And we're going to do this part in white. So again, I'm just going to come in with my white paint, my Crafters Workshop paint. Really get in. I'm doing a swirling motion on this, but you could really kind of go however you want. And then add in that color. The cardstock I'm using is just a nice cardstock. Look at that, so cool. And it just looks awesome. This is just a blue cardstock that I found in my stash that matches really well with the colors that we already have. All right, we're gonna do some layers on this stencil. Put my paintbrush off to the side, heat set this. And I'm gonna come in with my, this is gonna be silver this time. And we're just going to do these two top portions. So I'm going to come in with the silver and hit some silver right here. There's already a lot of blue going on, so I don't want to do the blue. And there's kind of the juxtaposition. There's a little bit of a hint of the previous one. And I'm going to heat set that as well. I'm going to come in with that black pen that we used earlier and just kind of highlight and just a little bit, just kind of create a little bit of just some kind of fun. And then also come back in with that Stella and Wink pen and kind of outline the same space. Really come in. And then I can come into here and add some shimmerness, just a little bit of something, and then kind of heat set that, but I just added to there. I think I'm also going to come in with my pen. You know, this whole thing is just very grungy and just kind of loose. I'm just having some fun with it and just playing around with the concepts of the colors. So I'm opening up my picture again. I have my general layout. You guys can just see my camera. Oh, it's kind of off. I have my camera just offset. The screen doesn't want to show up. And now I'm going to start gluing everything down. And I'm going to use glue. So the first step is I'm going to take these 2 sheets of paper. I'm going to take these 2 sheets of paper and I'm just going to rough them up a tiny bit. Leave them kind of raw. Rip them up a little bit. Give it that grunginess vibe happening. And I'm treating this kind of like I would treat a layout. Like how would I design a layout? How would I set this up? How would I organize it? And then I'm going to do the same thing with this. I already have my clips on there and I'll just skip over them. And these are just little sections of the paper. Ones I'd already cut out and started using pieces of. This was actually a section of the paper that had a whole bunch of these little pictures on it. Let me show the big picture. So this was the original card. I just cut out a couple of little pieces, the phrases I liked, the words I liked, and then one whole section off the top, it had that stripe along with the banner that you usually get with the extra that has the barcode. And so I'm using that. And this was a little bit of an extra piece from the first page that we used that had that banner. So I'm just using those to my benefit. One side, it's going to be a little bit, and I'm doing them a little bit off. I mean, I'm not lining them up just perfectly, which I think is kind of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and use my same glue because I can use the same thing. I have got 2 different glues going on here. One is better, I think, for paper because I can do a nice flat layout, and that comes a little bit off the side. And it also gives me some play. If I don't like the way it sits from the very, very beginning, then I can kind of move it around a little bit. Make sure I get some glue right on top of where I put my paper clips. There it is. That goes up a little higher. Ta-da. Now this piece right here, this piece is actually from the gears. When I popped all the gears out, this was some of the chipboard that was left behind. So I cut out a section and it's going to go right here. But for this bigger piece, I'm going to switch to a little bit of like a heavier duty glue. So that's why I'm going to switch gears. And I've got my trusty little glue jar. And I like the way I had it laid out before. So this goes here like that. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and keep using this. I have, well, let me put my cards on first. Don't want to jump ahead because I might change exactly how it's laid out. Go ahead and rough these up. These would be like if you were going to do a scrapbook layout, these would be the pictures. And they are pictures. They're just a little different. That's all. It's totally cool. Oh, let's do this one too. And this one says, every story has a moral if you only can find it. So I thought that was kind of fun. So what is the purpose of this junk journal? It's just fun. You know, it's a way to kind of add to, and I actually have decided to remove one whole picture, a whole section, because it was the, I'll show you when we get to it, partly because I want to step back and be able to recreate another page on another day. And I feel like if I try to do the entire book today or within a couple of days, all pieces of those layouts will look the same. But if I wait just a tiny bit, if I waited a week or maybe a month and I come back and I do another section of it, then my mood will be different. How I'm thinking will be different. Therefore, the design that I have will be different. Maybe I'll pull out different stuff to work with. There, that's going to be. And then I had this one down here. Originally, I had these whole strips further up on the layout. There wasn't such a big gap. But my eye gravitated because I have a thing happening here. My eye is leaning towards pushing it down, so I'm not covering up all the background work that I did. And I'm going to have that little guy right there. And I left all those gears plain this time versus coloring them because I had so much blue in the background. So I kind of altered how that looked. And so that is that. I'm not really putting a whole lot of words on here. I'm kind of leaving the words open and simple on these ones. So now this is going to get stuck to the back of my front cover. So it's just going to go right here, just like this. So I can go ahead and flip this over. I didn't want to add too much here, so this is why it's having a hard time sticking down. I want to add all the glue right to the edge. Keep in mind with glue, a little goes a long way. This is too thick, what I have right here, so I'm actually going to use my finger and thin it out. Glue works better when it's nice and thin. If it's too gloppy and gloopy, it's going to take longer. As you can see, I really have no problems or qualms with how I am lining up and using my finger to like smear it around. It's absolutely fine. Now, once this is on here, I'm very lightly going to take my pen and I'm going to kind of go around the edge here. Make it look like it's one, like not like I'm not just sticking it on here. So just outlining the two and kind of making it look like it's one piece right here, just like this. There we go. So just kind of combining the two elements together. Now, obviously, what are we missing in here? Punches. So we need to punch this to get our holes back again. So I'm going to flip to the front side and find my holes and go ahead and re-hole punch. So that way we can have our holes back. And there, now our holes are set and it's part of that. And so that is the back side. So now onto the last page of my little book that I'm going to work on today. Again, this could be a book that I add to at any point. And again, I've already taken my picture, so I'm just going to move off little elements. And what I'm trying to do is come in and add some little pieces that kind of everything. There's little pieces that match from everything. The papers are all kind of similar. There's similar papers, obviously the colors, but like for instance, these little brackets, they kind of came from one of the other pages. The butterfly also came from another page. I'm going to add some of the swirls probably in on this page. The gears, you know, just that kind of stuff. So there's like little pieces here and there that match. And so I'm also going to come back to this page. And if you notice, I add this little piece, I'm going to add some swirls just to kind of connect all the pieces to the pages together a little bit better. All right, so the first thing, again, stencil. It's another one I'm going to do on this page. And we're going to go back to our first stencil here, and we're going to go in with the silver. So because I have this piece coming in low, but then this piece is going to go right here in the middle of it, we're just going to be seeing a little bit at the top. So right here, we're going to go like that and go ahead and stencil this in. It's kind of a fun way when you use the same stencil. And I know there's some of the other color that's on here, and I haven't washed it on purpose for a couple reasons. One, I'm totally cool if the colors kind of blend. Two, I've just been working and I didn't want to go run over as often. I'm going to add a tiny little bit more down here. I'm just doing a smaller stencil on this one. Not much is going to be seen. I think most of that's going to get covered up. There's a little bit of something, so it's kind of going linearly. But there might be little hints of some colors, and now I could even come in if I wanted to and flip it upside down. I'm not going to on this one, and kind of transfer some of those colors. All right, I'm also, since I have my brush out, going to paint lightly and give this kind of a silver hue. And there will be a separation because we're putting that paper in the middle of it. So it's not going to blend too well, but it's going to give it a little bit of a color distinction. So really kind of come in. And I like this because I can push and I can get into all those little nicks and grooves here. Really get in there and add some kind of, and look at that sheen. Looks like almost like tin now, which I think is so much fun. Okay, so that needs to dry. Now I'm going to pull out my last brush, and then I get to go clean all my brushes because I will be done. I think I have just enough paint, and we are going to turn all of our gears white. Really make them pop. This paper's got a lot of blue in it, so I'm not going to be adding a whole lot of blue to this layout. I might do some blue accent, but I think my blue is all dried up. And so there we go, just like that. Not making it too perfect looking. There we go, and just set that off to the side. I'm not worried about if the back side gets some paint on it. I think it'll just add to whatever it is. You know, if I decide to do something with this and do something with the back side later on, it'll have something going on with it already. So I think I'm going to shorten this up a tiny bit. I want to see a little bit more of my stencil. There we go. I like that better. And then can I still see a decent amount? Yeah, I can still see quite a bit of it, even with the cardboard on there. So let's go ahead and glue this down. I'm going to keep this clean. I don't want to add any texture to it. And we'll come back and add that punch in a little bit to hole punch it. So there we go. I'm keeping on top of that hole. And then I need to hole punch it now so I can know where to line up. So going ahead and flipping it over and punching it. There we go. And now I can go ahead and line this guy up too. There we go. So there we go. And that's just playing with paper and that extra piece of cardboard from the top and layering it down below. Now I'm going to look at my picture to make sure I have the orientation of my gear correctly. So I had this piece, and the reason why I'm doing that is because if I don't do it the correct way, these little guys don't line up just the way I want them to. So this lines up this way, but this I need to add a little bit of something because this cardboard, it's not letting it lie flat. So I happen to have these little rings. I don't even know what they're from, and it's the perfect height. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this to the back. It's just, I could use a piece of cardboard. I just happen to have this ring, and it's sitting right here. So I'm just going to put this ring on the back side, and it's just to give it some elevation. So as it rests here, I'm not fighting it. And you can still see the stenciling in the background, which I think is very cool. All right. So now we're going to add all of our glue. This is the part that matters, is right here. And then down here, you'll get little pieces because it'll be glued down to the corrugation portion. Just like that. Then I have my little metal piece here. Here we go. And it's just to tie in. I'm going to kind of nuzzle that in right in like that. There we go. And then I have another metal piece here. I've had these, I think they're from Prima. They're so old. And I bought a whole bunch of them. So you know what? I dug through my stash. I'm using up things I have sticking in my stash. Why not? And that'll help also elevate up the pieces that I have sitting right there. And I have a butterfly on another section, so I'm going to add a butterfly, I think right about there, just to add. Oh, and it's two-sided, so it doesn't matter really what side you stick the butterfly. I think this is an old Momenta piece, but it's been a while since I've looked at it. It kind of hides there. What about here? Oh, I like that better. It pops a little bit better because there's more of a background that's white. And then I had these two, but I want to add some of my, just, you know, to kind of bring in just a little something. It looked a little too plain. I also wanted to add some of my swirls. Now, I did want to come in here. All right, I want to add swirls to both pages, but I only have one swirl left. So I'm going to kind of morph and tuck. And I love just this little hint of a swirl right here coming down. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that part up, and then I'll be left with whatever is left behind. So I love that swirl. I also had one more of these little stylus pieces, which I put two of them on here. So it's transferring and adding kind of a similar element, which I think is fun. Another thing I was debating doing is because I want to come back and kind of rehash this and play with this again at another time, possibly, is that I want to possibly leave this as a kit. So if in a month I want to come back, I'm not having to re-dig out all these pieces after I put them away. I might put them in one container and then very carefully lift this guy up. And therefore, everything is where I want it to be. So just add this in right here. There we go. Just a little something, and then maybe on top. Yeah, I like that. Put it right back where it was. It's been a little element on top. There that piece is. So now since this piece is now done, I've added a couple things, re-looked at some stuff. I want to add some of my swirls. I do feel like it needs some blue, so I'm going to have to kind of come back with some of the blue. So where do I want to add some swirl action to? I love the idea of the swirl kind of tucking in through here. So I'm going to do that. A little top swirl just did not want to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rearrange it so it's off to the side here. And this little guy fell off because it got restuck. So I'm actually going to add a little adhesive right here. These little guys just don't want to stay put. And then I can add it back in right there. And this one did the exact same thing. So just the stickiness did not quite hold up, because I think my fingers are a little sticky, and I was moving them and cutting them, and you know what? That's what glue is for. So now I've got one little tiny swirl left, and where do I put it? Or do I just leave it and maybe put it in the stash? And I'm thinking maybe on top. Maybe it's for the butterfly. Oh, I like it for the butterfly. We're going to do that. But I'm going to get rid of the rose because it's going to make it too thick. And you know what? Maybe I'll add the rose down here, in the center of this. See, there's always a way to put something there. Now the rose has a location. Our butterfly has a trail. And now let's go back and see if I like my two. Yep, that works for me. But this is very, very gray. I need to add some more pops of some blue. So that's what paint is for. So adding these on. All right, so my paint was pretty dry, but guess what? I can add water, and then I can add flicks. And now I can get that pops of that same color blue, and I can add them in wherever I want to. Really just lay it in there. And I can come in on top of the metal pieces I don't want to have and pull it off, because it's not going to stick to that anyway. But all the chipboard and all the wood, the background pieces, that will all hold really well with the paint. And there we go. Now it's got some blue action and something a little different than the other pages didn't have. They didn't have splatters, but it's adding a little bit of water. And so that I'm going to let air dry. I'm not going to heat set that, because the glues and all that kind of stuff won't take too well to that. I'm afraid I'm going to mess up the swirls because they already have an adhesive with it. So that's going to air dry, and I think we're about done. So just to kind of rehash what it looks like, here's the front page. Very cool. And I did find a word I wanted to add to it. I found this word that says grow, and I just liked it. And I think I like it because my book is going to grow, you know, and maybe it's growing in style, you know, whatever. And it just works. I like the color. It has a couple meanings. Maybe I'm growing in my art. I can see how things have changed over time. So it's kind of like a growing journal, or it can grow because I have more pages that I would get to add to it. And I think I'm going to leave the pages within the book so I don't lose them. Otherwise, they might get shuffled into somewhere else. So here's the first page, and then it flips over, and here's the back side of that. And then we move into our first page. It looks like a gear, so something a little different. We'll kind of play on how you want to do that. And then the back side, we're just leaving it as a kind of an eye relief. There's still something going on. I could come back and journal over top of this. I could add more to that. Maybe this will be something that I play with in the future. I've just added a kind of a starting point. And then lastly, our last page right here. And then to bind it, all I'm going to use is 3 little jump rings, or like rings. And if I can't find rings, I have to go hunt some down. I think they're somewhere. Then maybe just some ribbon to hold together. I like the idea of having the rings so I can open and close it. I just have to hunt them down. So that is my book that I have. If you can see, there's 1, 2, well, I mean, we made 5 pages because I did not do anything on the back side of this, and I don't want to flip it over yet. All up close pictures will be on the end of this video, which will be coming up here very shortly. Links are down below for you guys to find all of your amazing supplies, from the Vintage Girl items, from the Crafters Workshop stencils and paints. I will do my best to try and find some of these metal pieces. The papers are coming from European Paper Crafters, which is an American-based company but brings you European. So these are like actually papers that are from Europe. And then like some of the other things like the swirls and stuff, those have also come from Prima. And then the Supertite glue. So don't forget the coupon codes for European Paper Crafters and also for the Supertite glue, so that way you can get your own. And there's also going to be a link to my blog, so that way you can go to my blog, because there's going to be another link, which I will put up as well, where you can find some more inspiration for using these vintage girl chipboard pieces and book pieces. I did not get to use the alphabet, but guess what? I can save this and hopefully use the alphabet pieces and all these with other papers or other pieces that I add to this book later on. Because I still have one more of the gear pieces that I have not added, which I could go either vertically or horizontally, or I could cut up pieces that could fit in this book. There were some other pieces that I set aside, so maybe I can cut them down to fit inside this book as well. So it's just lots of fun to be able to add to it later on, but I feel like this is where I want to be today. So thanks so much. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell button for further notifications, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit of some mixed media, vintage, steampunk, junk journal fun. That's a big mouthful. Bye-bye, everybody.